And this happened like 5 or 6 days in a row. And I'd probably have to go into my book to look. One of these two stars were a little too bright, and I was like, those stars are a little too bright. I noticed, and one of them started moving off just barely from, away from the other one, and then it just started like it was bouncing off of some surface, and coming back, and it would keep going, and that's one. I don't remember the whole thing. It was kind of a long thing, but there was another night where I saw like a triangle of stars, and then they were a little bit brighter than they should have been, and in between them, I saw something appear, and it was like it had like a rocket tail off the edge. Like I could see the rocket flames, but not the craft itself, and moving, but in between this 6 days in a row. But they were just started out like stars, and then changed. And so I had those.
Subtle type of communications, or more passive type of communication might be a better way to say it, because there's probably a lot of telepathic conversation going on there. It's just human brains are kind of have a hard time absorbing it. I think is what one of the problems are. That, and I think because as humans we're kind of limited to what we understand, because only human can only understand through experience for the most part. And when you start talking about extraterrestrial contact and when you start talking about communications, our experiences are very, very limited. They're 1%, 2%, and it's hard to know how much of it is it's I don't know how to explain it. It's more like it gets jumbled almost. There's so much little stuff going on that there seems to be conversations lost in it. It's almost like they're trying to bring you along at a rate that won't scare you off, freak you out, but still try to make you kind of understand something that they're doing and going on. I'm not talking about you per se, but it seems like this for a lot of contactees, because you hear a lot of different things about stars moving in the skies and then contact. Or you'll hear about stars moving in the sky, and then I woke up in the morning and I had this weird dream all night. Or I seen these stars moving, and the moon was to the left of me, and all of a sudden it was to the right of me. That suggests some type of contact that's not being remembered. Something that they're either locking up or don't think you're quite ready for yet. See, I'd like to actually get in your head. To be honest with you, when I got into this many moons ago, hold on a second there. Okay. I was kind of anti-hypnosis, and because I just didn't trust the people who were doing it. Now here we are 35 years, and I've got certified myself a long time ago and taught and did the whole 9 yards, and really have a good idea of how it works and who it works on and what you can expect to get out of it. I find it a useful tool, because what I find so far, I got to be honest about this. I was going to give you a lower percentage, but I'm going to be honest. So far, everybody I've ever hypnotized, I found way more in their head than what they were telling me about. And you got to remember, since I don't give you any kind of information, it's all coming from you. I don't lead witnesses. I don't put things in your head like UFOs or ETs or any of that stuff, because I really want the contactee or the experiencer to explain to me exactly what it is they're feeling, sensing, and seeing. And it works really well. You got to be careful with people with really good imaginations, because when you're in a low hypnosis, people's imaginations can get away from them. But usually you find something else. You'll find like when we were talking about the stars, and I heard you talking about it on a couple of occasions throughout the hour. I got to thinking, any one of those occasions could have been a download. There could be something locked down in the back of your head somewhere that either you're suppressing or they're suppressing, or both.
Well, let me tell you.
Okay.
Did I tell you about the Indian that came to my house when I was a kid?
I think there was a conversation we were getting into, and then we got a question or something that came in, and we ended up moving on from it. Because for some reason I remember a piece of it, but I don't remember it all. And it might just be I'm getting old, Mike. So.
Well, okay. So my sister, I asked. Check this out. I asked my mother and my sister about this event, and neither one of them remember it. So I'm the only one who remembers this. So anyway, there was two events that may or may not play into this. And so one of them, we're sitting in the living room, and my sister, myself, my father, and my mother are all together in the living room. And this Indian fellow pulls up in his car. I don't remember what kind of car it was, but because I was like, maybe I couldn't have been much older than about 5 or 6, and he gets out of the car, closes his door, walks around the back of his car, and then around the back, and then around the side of his car up to the walkway, turns to the right, walks on the walkway to the house, walks straight up to the house, doesn't hesitate. I guess, I don't know if he knocked. I don't remember if he knocked or opened the screen door, but he must have knocked, because my dad just opened the door and he stepped into the house without hesitation. Now, this guy was a total stranger that nobody in our family knew. And I don't think my dad knew him either. But I was watching him as he was walking from his car to the house, and I looked one look at him, and even as a kid from that distance, I knew there was pure blood in me. I don't know how I knew that, but maybe it's just me today reflecting back to then, and maybe I didn't know that as a kid. So anyway, as my dad opened the front door without hesitation, he steps into the house. And thinking back to that, I think that's really odd, because if you're a stranger and you walk up and knock on somebody's door, you tend to not step into their house. You say something from outside and let them give you permission to step inside, or to say, come in, but there was no hesitation. He steps right in. I don't think my dad said, come on in. It was really odd. And so the minute he's inside, I can see his head, but not his face. And my memory stops at that moment. I have no memory of him stepping beyond the space between the door and the opening of the door. Not even like 1 foot into the house. And that's really odd for your memory just to stop like that. And so that's one of the memories. And so the other memory was I was in the living room, in the kitchen with my mother, and we're sitting there, and you could hear this owl hooting really loud, like it was almost like it was in the room with us. And it was on the roof, directly on the middle of the roof. And I said to my mother, oh, it's an owl. Let me go out and check it out. And she goes, no, don't do that. She's like all scared. And I'm like, I haven't asked her about this story yet. And so I don't know, maybe she remembers it, maybe she doesn't. But yeah, I found it.
Really, it's way back in the 60s and 70s, people you'd hear people talking about crows or owls sitting on a windowsill or sitting on a stand. And a lot of these big owls, 3-4 foot tall, standing in the middle of the damn road and stuff, or sitting on the corner of your roof, or sitting on the peak of your roof. You get the same thing with deers just standing there staring at you like you're stupid or something. Everybody knows deers, they might stand in a headlight of a car, but for the most part, you start walking around, moving towards them, they're going to leave. But these don't. These always seem to be, curious. These are all trigger memories. This is a subtle way of letting you know something happened. What they do is, and they do this to everybody, it's just to different extents, because they kind of know or have a sense of what you can handle and what you can't handle. And what I mean by that is, an ET could come right up and show you full blood what he is or she is or it is, and show you all kind of wonderful things. The problem is how much of it would you absorb, and how much of it could you handle? Because for a lot of people, that would be a breakdown or a meltdown right there. Just the fact that there was an ET standing in front of them is enough for more than half the planet just to melt down, without even knowing if they're hostile, friendly, something in between. And then when they start doing things that humans, we're smart enough to know that it's technology, but we're dumb enough to also think, wow, man, it's almost like magic. Some of the stuff they do is because we just don't understand it. Our scientists say it can't happen, it doesn't work that way, and blah, 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 blah. But in reality, it does. Or at least there in reality, it does. So, we always put these as trigger memories because we find that when people start telling us about owls or different types of animals or weird things along those lines, we almost always find that they're cover memories or trigger memories.
Well, on an unrelated topic, it was one day, this is an interesting story, but it's not terribly related. But
okay.
You may find it interesting. Anyway, I was sitting on the front steps, and there was no porch. There was just a screen door and steps. I was sitting on these steps, and I don't remember if I was leaning against the screen door or not, but I looked up, and I saw this, it was like a large rock falling in the sky, directly down in front of me. And it got bigger and bigger, and it was coming almost straight at me, but kind of falling slightly in front of me. And when it got directly in front of me, you know what it was?
What?
Guess.
It could be a lot of things.
It was a bat.
Was it? Oh, that's
it was a bat. Cool. Okay, this bat was like looking me straight in the face. It's coming at me like 90 miles an hour, really fast. It was literally falling out of the sky. And as it's coming at me, right, literally straight at my face, it opens its wings, and it's got its talons. It's about to land right in the middle of my face. And I duck forward, and it skims through my hair and slams against the screen door and gets its talons totally stuck and gouged into this door. And it's sitting there going, eeking, trying to, screaming, trying to pull its talons out of the door. And after I duck and it goes through my hair, I jump up, spin around, and land all in one motion. And I'm staring at it, trying to pull its talons out of the screen door. And I run around the door, the house, and to the back, into the back door, and slam the back door. And I'm like, holy crap! And then I go to the front door, and I open the front door to. I assumed it would still be stuck in the screen door, and it's gone.
That's cool.
But what I found out was I found out later my dad had found a female bat and her offspring, which would have been his wife and his kid, and he crushed them underfoot. Back in the day when people didn't realize that bats were good for an area because they eat all your mosquitoes.
Yeah, and a lot of your rodents too.
Right. Well, people didn't realize back then that was the case, and so they would kill them thinking about like vampire bats and stuff, some BS, They didn't realize that you want bats.
You need them. They're a vital part of your local community.
Yeah.
We got where I live, because I live on the coast, but because our houses are raised, they always want to move in underneath my house. They always constantly, because I don't want to poison them because they're useful, but I don't want them living in my damn house either. Rat dung is pretty harsh. So I mean, not rat, but bat. It's pretty harsh. You really don't want it in your house if you don't have to. They'll get up underneath my side and stuff because my house, like I said, is raised, so there's 10 feet of clearance underneath there. They can go hang out, and I'm constantly running them out of here. But
so the last time we talked, did we go over my my abductee client? As a hypnotherapist, I had one abductee client.
Just barely, because it's something we said we were going to talk about on this show. We were just getting into it because we were kind of leaving this second hour to kind of get into that. So it's
okay. All right. Well, the lady, as a hypnotherapist, there was one lady who came to me for back pain and obesity, and she, we had 2 sessions. Let's see. The first session, she released over 3,800 different events, which were all abusive experiences with her parents, all in one session. And I was taught that was impossible, that you couldn't release so many different things all in one session. I was extremely skeptical about her being
As you should be.
right. So, because I'd worked with a number of people who had attaching spirits, maybe half a dozen people, and talked to those spirits, and they just played games. They were pretending to go into the light and do this and that, and they were not cooperating at all. They were just pretending. So I assumed that that was the case with this lady, that her subconscious was just protecting her and that she was just not cooperating. And so that was in the first session. Second session, the very first thing I did was talk to her subconscious. I said, did you actually release those 3,800 and some odd events in the first session? He said, yes. What I was taught to do was use the pointing finger pointing finger on one hand was a yes, and the pointing finger on another hand was a no, and that was my yes and no, so that I didn't use the voice of the individual. I was taught that if you did it this way, that the subconscious mind would not come up and interfere with the session. So I did it like that for a while. I broke out of that, but I used that method for a while. And so I'm confirming with her subconscious that she actually did release those things. And it said, yes, I did release those events. And so I said to it, I'm talking to the subconscious, not the conscious mind. I said, are there any other events that have to do with back pain and obesity which need to be released, which have not been released? And it said yes. And I said, how many? And I had this method where is it between this number and this number, and I'd keep doing that till I got to the number, and it ended up being 72. And so, come to find out, after I didn't find out what those things were during the session, but at the end of I told her subconscious mind to give the conscious mind all the knowledge of these 72 events in a positive manner, in such a method where it would be okay, this and that. I was telling her subconscious mind to give all this information to the conscious mind, so that when she came out, she could tell me what the 72 events were. So after the end of the second session, she comes out of trance and said, what are these 72 events? And, of course, I went through a releasing process with the 72 events also. And, but anyway, after she came out, I said, what are the 72 events? And she said they were encounters with the Greys. And I'm like, really? And so, come to find there was 24 implantations, 24 checkups, and 24 removals, 55 offspring. So the 24 checkups were not abductions. So she had 72 encounters, 48 abductions, and 55 offspring. And so I thought that number of offspring was kind of high. And so until I read, I don't remember one of the books, I think it was Abduction, or it might have been another book, or Abductions, plural, where they were talking about several different women who had similar numbers of offspring. And so...
you know why they do that, right? It's because most of them don't survive. They think they do, but they don't.
One of the things I found interesting about this girl, this girl was extremely interesting. The reason why they took her is because she had an extremely high psi talent. And she said that when she was in the womb, before she was born, she would be out of body, hovering above her parents' bed, looking at them. This was while her body was in the womb. And she retained that ability to get out of her body throughout her whole life. So when she's on the craft, she's strapped down to a table with Velcro, and she's getting out of her body, traveling around on the craft. She's jumping in their heads and getting them to move their heads in a certain direction to look at the genitals of the other gray. And there was 3 of them, on the craft. She said they always come in threes. And one thing she said was they don't really need spacecraft to travel in space. They can go just pop in and out as individuals. You don't really need a spacecraft. I'm talking about one particular race. But she said the reason why they bring the craft is so they have a place to strap you down, to do the breeding process, to carry the instruments, to carry their food, and to carry stuff. But they don't need it to actually move around. And so, of course, this is only one of many gray races. But anyway, another interesting thing about her was when they first came to get her was at the age of 9. And all they did that first time was they injected her with a growth hormone to make her mature sexually at the age of 9, far younger than she would normally. So one thing she said was before the age of 9, and their first close encounter with the Greys, she was in a room, and she said these astral demons, she called them astral demons, she said they materialized in the room, and they moved at her like they were going to attack her. And she said this invisible barrier was between her and the astral demons. She said they couldn't get through it to her. And so what I figure happened was these astral beings, for whatever reason, wanted her, and the Greys said, no, she's ours. And
actually, it's good cop, bad cop. The Greys are infamous for this. Not just for that. They sometimes they'll show it with black capes. Sometimes they got people with red eyes. But the Greys always step in to save them. And not just that, they'll also save them from Milabs as well. They do this on purpose so that the people will trust them and build just build trust with them. The Greys want you to feel like they're your protectors and saviors. They're not by any means, because they take you against your will anytime they want to, anywhere they want to.
Well, the problem with that theory is that I'm not saying that's not true, but in her case, the Greys didn't appear, and she never connected the astral demons with the Greys. She never made that connection to me in our conversation.
But I bet you she did to herself. Because they're not always there. The contactees will tell you, like when they get taken, especially in Milab cases, they'll say there'll be a presence and a force, and then they'll be home. That's the Greys. The Greys come in and remove them from places they consider dangerous. Also, for advanced contactees, ones that actually have relative information that the government could use or others could, they will instantly come in and take them out of harm's way. They have no problem doing that whatsoever. But when they're younger, they do these things. One of their favorite things is for there'll be these two beings that'll show up, and they're both usually wearing a cloak of some kind, like a Holocaust cloak. One will have red eyes, one won't. They have the basic shape and build of a Grey, but because they're cloaked, you get the sense that there's something else. And they're like good cop, bad cop. And then all of a sudden, there'll be a force that comes in and forces them out. And then usually later on, the contactee will ask the Grey, was that you that stopped this? And they'll say, yes, it was. Or they'll show you how they did it. But they do that on purpose. And I mean, man, literally, we've got over almost 58,000 cases now. So this is a common thing. There's a lot of things. That's why I want to tell people, well, you might have remembered your first abduction at 9, but that wasn't your first abduction. Your first abduction was pre-birth. Greys take you prior to birth. They bring your mother up there, they do all sorts of stuff. And it's a prerequisite that you're going to be a telepath, because I've never met a contactee that's not. We won't even consider you to even be a legitimate person if you're not empathic, because anybody because they abduct in family lines. And funny part about a Grey is the Grey that took you is probably the Grey that took your grandfather or grandmother 10,000 years ago.
Well, there was 2 different events in my life where I probably should have died. Okay, I'll tell you them really quick.
Great.
One of them I was at around the age of 18. I was heading down to Galveston, and I had a guy pull up beside me. I was on a Honda Sabre 750, and this guy pulled up beside me on a Kawasaki 550. with
Two-stroke.
tricked out to race. It was totally race ready, and he'd raced it on a racetrack as well. Anyway, he was one of my three best friends, and there was a point where we were that same day where we were on the Levee Road down in Freeport, and it's near Galveston. And
I've been all over down here, man. I love Galveston. Go ahead.
Well, we're up on this Levee Road, and we go into this turn that's just like on the Indy racetrack. It looks exactly like that. It's very high banked, and we're going like 75, 80 miles an hour around this curve, tracking, and the tires are up higher than my body, and because we're leaned all the way over, both of us. And so he's ahead of me because he's got a smaller bike and he's a better racer than I am, and or was. And so he, at the end of this curve, the radius decreases in radically and inward. And so he cranked his bike over so much that his case guards started scraping on the ground, and his back tire came off the ground, and his bike just started spinning. Fortunately, he had a full set of leathers on and didn't get a lot of road rash. But I'm behind him, and when the radius decreased radically on my much bigger bike, heavier bike, it threw the bike up to where it was perpendicular to the road, exactly perpendicular. And it started very slowly drifting up the edge of the road until it got to the very top edge of the road. And I'm literally driving on the edge of the road. And that's the last memory I have. And then what happened was the cop, when he arrived, he woke me up, and all I could see was the whole world was like clouds. And I could see this big dark object like a big bear coming at me, and I kept pushing it away. That was the cop. I was fighting the cop off, but I didn't know it. So anyway, I was in a coma for about 3 days in the top of my head. I didn't have a helmet. I didn't have a helmet on at the time. And I was like 20, 30 foot off the ground or higher, and flew. How fast do you fly when you're going 75 or 80 miles an hour?
Yeah.
And I landed on the top of my head, and it turned the whole top of my head soft like a baby's head. And they measured, the bike landed on its tank on the very top. It flipped straight over. And they measured from where I went off the edge to where the bike hit the ground, and they did calculations. I'm unconscious while they're doing this, right? And they calculated I must be going 75 or 80, so they wrote me a ticket while I'm dying, right? Of course, I never paid that ticket. But
it sounds like the coppers to me, but go ahead.
But anyway.
Bleeding to death. Let me give you a ticket there, bud. Yeah. Is he still alive? Kick him. Oh, yeah, he's okay. Give him that damn ticket now.
Okay,
Sorry.
So anyway, I should have died that day, but I didn't. I was in a coma for about 3 days. Another time, I was, I ran from the cops like 3 different times, and I got away twice with no problem. When I was on a motorcycle, I could get away from the cops easy. It was no big deal. But, and be gone, they'd be left in the dust. However, on the third time, I wasn't really running from them. I just wouldn't stop because I wasn't speeding. I was like, why are they? I was getting paranoid. They were trying to stop me, but I wasn't speeding. I'm like, why are these cops trying to stop me when I'm not speeding? Well, what happened was I'd gone around a guy and I sped around him just to be safe. But you can't speed around a person to be safe. You have to stay at the when you're passing them, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, you know what? I got in trouble for that when I was young too, man. I passed a guy. It was like 55 or 60. I only passed him about 5 miles an hour. That was a $200 ticket, man. I was like, you got to be kidding me, right? And he's like, oh yeah, man, you do that.
But once I passed the guy, I slowed down and did the speed limit. And when they caught up to me, I was doing the speed limit. And I was like, why are they trying to stop me? I'm not speeding. So I got paranoid and I wouldn't stop. So I kept going. And I started going up the middle between all these cars. And the cop was doing the same thing in his car. He was going up the middle, and he was doing it really fast. And this was and the traffic was almost dead stop, and they were like freaking out trying to get out of this cop's way, and they were like complaining to the police department that this cop was trying to run over them, and he was just like making never mind. He was just forcing people to get out of his way in a very dangerous manner, I might add. But he got up like within an inch of my bumper, and I looked back, and he's like literally 1 inch from me, and then he gassed it and sped up like he was going to hit me, and I'm like, I kind of freaked when he did that because I knew he was trying to knock me over, which would have killed me. And so I took off at that point, and at some point I had to lay it down because there was, I guess there was a cop coming the other direction, and when I laid it over, I'm sliding on the pavement, and my body's on the bike, and I should have gone under this car and been run over by the car, but for some reason that didn't happen. I'm not sure how that was avoided, but it didn't happen.
Somebody might have been watching over you, babe. Could have been anything too. And you might have just been sure. Like, I mean, I've seen some shit happen where I'm always amazed how things happen and work out sometimes. You know, I've seen people walk out of wrecks, they should have been dead. I'm thinking, whoa, you ain't got a scratch on you. Sometimes it's just the luck of the draw or sheer luck, or, you know, when you drive around a lot. You know, I rode a lot of bikes when I was young. I had a couple of friends, 2 of them are dead from riding bikes. One of them, he's pretty much broke all his arms, legs, shoulders. It's just, you know, when you ride, it's dangerous. And the problem with that is, but yeah, I agree with you, Mark. But the reason that bikes are dangerous, like Mark was just saying, is because you got to always be driving offensively and defensively because everybody around you is not paying attention. Especially now, think about, you know, when I was riding in the 70s and 80s and even in the early 90s, that's when I sold my last bike. It was dangerous being on the highways. But now with all these people with their cell phones, screw drunk drivers, man, these people are deadly out there. Do you know last year 480,000 people were injured? This is just by teen distracted driving. This ain't even we're not even talking deaths. This is just people were injured and maimed by. And then when you get into the adults, it's not much better. So last year, almost 700,000 people were maimed or injured because someone was chatting on their cell phone. And the death ratio now has surpassed everything else. People dying from people being on their cell phones is ridiculous. It surpassed drunk drivers, gun violence. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And because I'd go back to riding if it wouldn't be for all the nuts on the road. I miss my bike sometimes. Maybe I'll get a bug.
Did I ever go over my ayahuasca experiences? Any of that?
Well, wait, say that again. You broke up right as you said that.
My ayahuasca experiences, did I go over any of those?
You must not, because when you said it didn't sound familiar. But before you go into that, I want to go back for a minute to when you were talking about the contact that you were hypnotizing. You know, when you hypnotize, now let me ask you a couple of questions actually. So when you're talking to the people and you're putting them under, are you? How can I ask this? I don't want to give any secrets away here. When you, I mean, do you do like relaxation exercises or anything ahead of time, or something or maybe just a little just chit chat or something just to loosen them up? I'm just curious.
Well, there's a boatload of different techniques.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of them out there.
Of relaxation, you can have them go down. There's one I like where you have them go down an escalator, and they get off the escalator, and then a particular room color down another escalator. That's one I think
I've used that one something along those lines before. My favorite right now is I like to put them on a beach walking into the fog, but and then I usually put a stairwell in there going downward so they can go find it with landings on it. But it's basically the same technique. It's just we use it different ways, but I find it, to be honest with you, I find the one where I'm bringing them down level by level. You know, like bringing them down a set of stairs, so where I can stop them on a landing. I like to bring electronics into it now. And when I was doing this in the '90s, in the early '90s, I did it a little bit different. But now, since everybody's familiar with pads and computers, and so I just basically have them visualize a pad there that they can circle around their head and they can just touch the pictures they want to look at. That's one I use for a non-emotional response. That's to step them away they can visualize what it is they're doing, what's happening to them, but they're not actually experiencing the emotion. I like that one because it's good for research. But when we do real hypnosis for the records and all emotions are in there because we have the voice stress analysis running with it. Right on the side of their head, you'll see usually it's just a meter, and it's mainly for a couple of researchers that do voice stress, but we include that with every hypnosis session because for yourself, once you allow the emotions to flow, which you have to do sometimes, a person when they're talking or going through an experience, you can hear and sense it. So if there's a meter there, the meter is going to pick it up well. And it's important because it just helps people to understand. They're faking it. And why is that freaking meter pegging off the scale? If they were faking it, the meter wouldn't be pegging. The meter would be barely moving. It doesn't measure the loudness of your voice. It measures the way you project and put your voice out. Or the way the vibrations come, I guess is the best way to say it. Well, it's just a nice piece of technology to have on the side.
Okay, so one of the things I'll do is I'll count backwards from 100 or from whatever. But have you ever heard yourself snore?
Actually, my wife swears I don't snore, man.
No, what I'm saying is, have you ever heard yourself snore in real time?
No.
Okay, so the way you do that is, as a hypnotherapist, you probably understand that the first stage of hypnosis is to relax the body.
Yeah.
The second stage is to relax the mind. Right?
Yep.
Okay. So you go through all the body parts and say you're focusing on this body part. You relax the body part. You can go from the bottom, the feet to the head, or the head to the bottom. Mm-hmm. That's one of the techniques. There's so many different techniques, right? So, but you're relaxing the body first, then you relax the mind after that. Okay. So when I do self-hypnosis every day to myself, which I've got in the habit of doing instead of meditation,
good habit.
I do, I'm relaxing the body. So I hear myself snore almost every day because when the body is fully relaxed, see, snoring has nothing to do with sleeping. It has to do with physical relaxation. So if the body is fully relaxed and the mind is still awake, then you can hear yourself snore. But one of the things you said was about lie detector, and that rung a bell in me because I took a lie detector for the CIA, and I also took 2 lie detectors for the FBI. So I worked for both these agencies, but the lie detector for the CIA had nothing to do with the job I did for the CIA. I didn't have to take a lie detector for the job I did for the CIA, but it was for a different job for the CIA, which I didn't get that job because different reasons. But anyway, mainly because I failed the poly. But however, okay, so I took the full scope poly with the CIA, right? Mm-hmm. And then the next day I got the job with the FBI, because they were both trying to hire me at the same time. So then I worked for the FBI for like 5 or 6 weeks, and I got a call from GDIT, who is one of their big contractors, and they said, come back. I was literally driving from the J. Edgar Hoover building out of downtown DC. And before I got this call from GDIT to take the poly with the CIA the second time, I'm approaching this light, right? And so the light is red, and on the other side of the light, if you know anything about downtown DC, the southernmost street in the town is right next to the river. Okay, if you're driving on the street and you're going outbound, look at your left. There's the river, right? And so you get to the very last light. If you go through that light, maybe 500 foot later, you're on the freeway. there's no entrance ramp or anything. It just turns into.
It just turns into. I know right the hell exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, all right. So I'm approaching this light. It's red, right? And the light turns, and I'm going at a subdued pace, and the light turns green. So I step on it. I'm ahead of the pack. I'm got the very beginning of this pack of cars about to get on the freeway. We're still in downtown DC going 55 miles an hour. And the light is green. And at that intersection, the presidential motorcade starts inching out in front of me. And I've got a green light, and I'm at the head of this pack going 55 miles an hour on a residential street in downtown DC, right? And I've got this pack of cars barreling down on my rear end. And I'm like, do I brake for the president or the vice president or somebody from Israel? I mean, it is the
Could be anybody, yeah.
It's the presidential motorcade. Whoever's in it's got to be very important. Right?
Yeah. It's
They're not waiting for this light. And I'm like, do I jam on brakes and have 50 people dead because they run into my rear end, or do I keep going and say screw you to the president? And I'm like trying to make a decision. So I jam on my brakes, I almost flat spot my tires. I jam on my brakes, and everybody behind me slams on their brakes. And as soon as we come to not even a full stop, the motorcade goes flying through their red light, my green light, and takes a left and goes, to my rear and takes off towards the White House, which I've just gone around. And, when you go down Pennsylvania Avenue, it dead ends on the White House, and you have to take a left, and then you take a right at the corner of the White House and go down the street I'm talking about. And so anyway, off 15th Street. So, about 15 seconds later, I get this call from this GDIT at the CIA saying, come back and finish and retake your poly a second time. And the only reason I've told you this story is because partly it's interesting, but partly I'm going to take you back to the poly with the CIA. So I'm taking this poly with the CIA and I fail it, right? And the guy, I failed it, and the guy's unhooking me, and he's telling me exactly the secrets behind why I failed the poly. He says there's two questions that you failed. One of them was, I don't remember the second one, but the one I remember was, the question was, do you have ongoing contacts with foreign agents? And I answered truthfully to every single question on the poly. I even told them things, and I'm like, they're never going to call me after I've told them this stuff, I mean, there's no way in the world they're ever going to call me for a second poly, but they did, right? So, but he said, I failed that question and one other question, do you have ongoing contacts with foreign agents, which I don't have. But I didn't stop to think about the fact that I have contacts with ETs. They're foreign agents, right? Are they foreign?
Your brain will probably register it like that, yeah.
Well, my subconscious knows the truth, but my conscious mind, I wasn't thinking about aliens. I was thinking about people in wherever something stand. Terrorists. Yeah. I'm thinking about foreign agents, Russian.
You're thinking about, am I a Russian colluder? No.
Yeah, right.
I'm a great colluder. I'm sorry.
Well, the interesting part about the whole scenario was that the polygraph proved that I have ongoing contacts with foreign agents that I don't know who they are. To this day, I don't know who those foreign agents are.
No.
So anyway, I just thought that was interesting.
Being you're my age group, it's probably Bubba and Bob and them picking you up, but they just we it's funny about this. About 20 years ago, because I talked to a lot of contactees, not just the ones that work with us, but I work with God, I've lost count now, but probably more than 100 different groups that work with contactees, and I'm constantly. So I said, look, guys, just start naming your alien. I don't care. You call it whatever you want. Shira, Bob, Chris. I don't care what you name it. Just name it. And because I was curious to see how many different names we got. So basically, it may be some of the same grades, getting everybody, but not each one's got 35 or 40 names. These people are naming them left and right. And it's good because it helps you identify with them. Because the Greys are an interesting race. originally they weren't the original abductors. The reptilians and the human aliens were, and they still do even abduct people even today, but not at the rate the Greys do. Ever since the light being sent to Greys here to be basically a galactic policeman, things have changed quite a bit. And you can see what's great about this is when we talk about these stories, if you go back through human history, you can actually see what we're talking about. There was a particular direction our race was moving in, and then there was all of a sudden a complete change. And there was a big worship of reptilians. Remember, reptilians, even today, are considered the bearers of life. Most people always want to lump reptilians as bad, but in the ancient worlds, and even in the Mesoamerican and Native American worlds, they weren't evil. They were actually bringers of life, and the bringers, Kublai Kai and all of them were reptilians, and the sun and all these great deities. And even in Egyptian lore, the reptilians weren't evil. The evilness didn't come out about reptilians until I guess we could say after the time of Christ, or Christianity, or Judaism, or Muslim, whatever, whoever you want to blame it on is fine. But it was that era, about 2,000 years ago. It seemed that all the ancient stories, and even the Bible, even the Bible, the person that gives even Adam knowledge is their serpent. He says, hey, eat this apple and watch what happens. Oh, shit, what happened? She became self-aware. First thing she did was put on clothes. Second thing she did was like, oh, shit, man. I'm missing the whole damn universe. What the hell's going on? I'm living in a damn little garden with no clothes. They became self-aware. And this story is long before Christianity, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. You can find this in Egypt. You can find this throughout South America. You can find this in Africa. You can find this in Europe. These are very old stories that go way back, and they suggest a human-looking race and a reptilian race were deeply interfering with our society 100,000 or 10,000 years ago. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, and they show up in the cave drawings, or I should say the hieroglyphs in the Egyptian about 3,800 years ago, you start to see a gray. There's actually 3 different hieroglyphs where there's a gray in the hieroglyph. And you're like, okay, stage right in as the Greys, everything changes. The Greys are much more fierce than either one of the other 2 races. Their ships are organic, they're grown, they're intelligent, they're alive. And best we know, Greys have endless lifespans and can regenerate or put themselves into a new body just by thought. So they're a much more fierce race. And in the beginning, we were like everybody else. We thought, the Greys were subservient to the humans and reptilians. And then after interviewing a lot of contactees, you find out. So, there's a Grey contactee going or something's going on where there's a Grey present. A reptilian walks in or a human walks in, they actually will move out of the path of the Grey. And most of the time, contactees say they will put their head down as they walk past them. I don't know if it's out of respect or out of fear, but they do it. And that's just the little 3-foot Greys. You got the 5 and 6 foot Greys and the 7 and 9 foot Greys. And they ain't none of them even gray. They're like a cobalt blue, a white, and a brown. That's why when contactees tell me it's a gray, I'm really questionable. We really know what the aliens look like these days. And the Greys are important because of the food they eat and the way they absorb it through their skin can change the color of the skin. The browns and the whites are actually just a species of gray. And then the blues, for some reason, it shows more in them when they eat their food. They can go from like a translucent color to like a rich, deep. It's a blue. When you hear contactees talk about this blue, it's a blue they've never seen on this planet before. You can actually tell by the way they talk about it. Not just that, and then there's the blue plasma. Both these blues are blues that not have been seen on this planet. Because they can't find a word to describe the actual blue color. I mean, come on, it's blue. What are you going to describe? It's blue. Oh, well, you don't understand how blue it is. It's like electric and pulsating, and they're trying to make you understand what this blue color looks like. If I had $1 for every contactee told me about the damn blue, I could be retired and supporting a little fleet of children. I don't know, man. It is so strange when you talk about these things. And when I got involved, I was completely, I tell people all the time, people, you know a lot. Well, yeah, I was completely ignorant 35 years ago. I thought contactees were nutters. I'm not even going to lie to you. First person said I was abducted by aliens. I said, yeah, sure you did. Yeah. What were you smoking out here? Because I'm from New Orleans. I'm thinking, yeah, were you out on Bourbon Street last night when you seen them aliens? Come on. People tell you they've been abducted by aliens and give you these big stories. In the beginning, I was like, no way. And then I realized something, Charles. Some of these people had really high, well, all of them had at least a 130 or higher IQ. All of them had high IQs. A lot of them were in positions where it would hurt them financially, mentally, or physically if this was to get out. I couldn't understand what they were talking about. And I'm like, you're about to lose your job and your family and everything over this, and you're out here talking, and it bothered me. I'm like, look, they're nutters. So I started looking into it, and here I am. What am I, 56 now? Oh, Jesus. 37 years later.
So did I tell you about the dragons?
No, what do you mean can't be hanging out with dragons till the end of the show now? What is wrong with you, man? This is God time.
So did I tell you about the dragons?
No, obviously not. I wouldn't have got off like that. Yeah, definitely tell me about it, because we got about 15 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes, so squeeze them in there.
Okay, so I went to I was learning some metaphysics from a particular gentleman, and we went to a Franciscan monastery in San Diego from Houston, and one of the students was had purchased a particular alternative healing practice from another doctor. I won't mention what it is because it would be too easy to find the guy. He doesn't want to be associated with this story, but he told me the story. He said that he and this other girl that I was we went to this metaphysics training with. She and him and a bunch of other people showed up in China, in a very remote part of northern China. I don't know if it's in Mongolia. I guess it was near the Mongolian border. And so out of their body and put them back in their body and take them out, put them back. And it was a method of regressing them to past lives. And I'd never heard of this method, but that's how he mentioned it. And he said that a group of the people in the room, him, the girl, and some others, all went back to this same past lifetime. And the rumor's been floating around. I've heard more than one person say it, that we've been on Earth as civilizations 4 times. The current civilization, before this one, Atlantis, before that one, Lemuria, and before that one, the first one. Well, the first one was, we were, according to this story the guy gave me, we were shape-shifting dragons. We shifted between dragons and humans. And I thought it was like a ludicrous story until we got into it and started giving all the details. And it was a pretty interesting story. But he said that these aliens, when we were shape-shifting between humans and dragons, when we were in human form, they would come down in these there were balls, and they had like this pattern on the edge of the ball or in the middle, and they would trap us if we were in human form and in this magnetic field, and take us in the craft, and then take us away and take away our ability to shapeshift. And that's how we lost that. But if you look at he said there were statues all over the place of dragons, and they would always have a ball in their paw. And he said the ball represented those alien craft. And the Chinese think that ball represents the earth or a bunch of other different things, but they don't really know what the real representation of it is. And I just told you what it really is. And so it's the craft that the aliens were in. And we would, as dragons, we would grab them, the craft with our paw and crush the aliens. And, but, we had that kind of power. But it sounded like a really hokey story when he first started telling it. But the more details he got into, the more I realized that it wasn't just something this guy was making up. Plus, he didn't want to be associated with the story. He wasn't looking for fame or fortune or money. He wanted not to be associated with the story. I don't think he was lying. And so, therefore, I either have to think he was crazy, which I don't. He was very good at what he did, or he just was lying, and I don't think that was true either. So the alternative.
It's interesting. I've heard that before. I've actually heard people talk about. It's more like a evolution from dragon to human, but I've actually heard, because we've talked about how many great extinctions there have been on the planet. There's been 4, or you can argue 4 or 6, but the problem here is more than likely, if it only took man at 63 million years to evolve into what we are today, and that's just being kind, because it really only took us probably 5 or 6. Just the dinosaur era lasted 300 million years. You go before that, you're 500-600 million years. You go before that, you're 500-600 million. There's been 1.5 billion years on the planet that could have been life on the planet, and they keep pushing it back further and further and further now. They pushed the amoeba stage back to like 2.2 or 2.5 billion years. So it looks like in the last 1 billion years there could have been life on this planet 3 or 4 times, and evolved into its sentient races. And a lot of people talk about that's what the reptilians are, that they came from here and went and colonized when the asteroid hit 63 million years ago. And they call them the Dracos. That's why people see the reptilians, they think they're different races, but they're not. They're all the same race. Some of them have wings, some of them have gills. That they're 9 or 10 varieties of their asses, but they're still just one race. And they're very advanced, but they do have a religion. It's a single-minded religion for the basic part. I mean, what I mean by that is there's no multiple religions in their species, and their species is, and it's very funny because it's almost like 1/3 of them or more or Guerrian. They're just not violent at all. At least half the species is that way. The other half is broke up into groups that seem to be doing all sorts of things, from what you could call a military stance to just an everyday, day-to-day, I got to run this bullshit kind of stance, to scientists and people who are working in between. It's a very interesting thing to watch how it evolved. Once you get enough cases, you can start seeing these things. You can start seeing how this all clicks together and why they're doing some of the things that they're doing. Most people don't even realize, everybody always thinks the aliens are here for us. That's not true. They're here for them.
Yeah.
We're just part of what's going on. And I always tell people, just because they're being nice to us right now, don't mean they won't wipe us out. And you don't go wipe out the beehive.
I got a story on that.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, you don't go wipe out the beehive in your backyard because it's pollinating your flowers. But if it starts stinging your children, of course, you go wipe it out of existence. So, but go ahead.
I got a short story for that one. Okay, so I went to a MUFON meetup in, I guess it was here. Let's see, it was here. Yeah, it was here in Atlanta, and nobody showed up. I mean, literally, nobody showed up.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that happen before. Okay.
I was the only person there, except there was one other person that showed up. She showed up, her husband showed up, and her kids showed up, all in one car. The husband and the kid went in the library, and they weren't interested in UFOs. And I sat and talked to the wife. The wife is an abductee, right? What she tells me about the Greys. She says they are planning on wiping us out. What they're going to do is they're going to replace us, and it will be maybe 5 or 6 generations down the road. It's not with us. It's not with our children. It's not even with our children's children. It's like 4 or 5 generations down the road, they're going to replace the whole.
No, that's actually true. They talk about, because the Holocaust dream, we learned about that. So many contactees, about 1/3 of all contactees have what we call a Holocaust dream. But what this basically is the people, they're taking people, even now they're taking people at death. So sometimes when you die, if you're part of their useful plan, they're going to take you and upload you into a host body, just like they do for themselves. They even do this for contactees regular time, just so they can get experience with the new body, because it's the bodies are different than ours. They're made for a slightly different environment than ours. So they take these people off world. They're going to be off world for a while. Some of them will get sent back here. Most of them won't, because they're going to live very long lives. But it will probably be like their great-great-great-grandchildren that are going to be sent back. They talk about it. People always think it's going to be this Armageddon thing. It's not. It's going to be a pandemic. There's a pandemic. See, contactees are already immune to this. So somewhere when the planet reaches, I forgot what they talked about, somewhere between 9 and 13 billion people, they talk about this triggering. And what happens is about 85 to 90% of the population is wiped out in less than 7 days. They talk about cities are all intact. You can drive through them, lights are working, things are working. But sometimes you'll get to the end of a city and there'll be mass graves of people being just rolled in with bulldozers and stuff. And groups of contactees huddling together waiting to be retrieved by ET. They get in really detail. I don't talk about it much because it's stuff we don't like giving away to other people that are listening. Not legitimate researchers, but other people. Because I get harassed about it from time to time. But this is, we know these events are predestined. Whether it's in our lifetime or not, it doesn't matter. If you're an abductee and they find you useful even if they're planning on this event being 100,000 years from now, they're going to take you, they're going to upload your consciousness into one of their computers, where basically you don't even know you're not alive. You're just hanging out. And when they're ready, they download you into a body, and away you go. And for anybody listening tonight, our government had started working on this particular thing in 1998. They actually officially announced that they were doing this. Well, before that, a gentleman took a microchip, embedded it into his brain, and guess what he recorded? Memories on a microchip from his brain while he was using it in his head. Since then, the technology has come a long way. Whether or not, I'm going to tell you a little secret. We probably already have the technology to upload your consciousness into something else. Our problem is designing bodies that can be used, not clones or anything like that, because clones have other issues. They want to be able to grow a host body, a husk body, and then be able to upload your consciousness into that. And let's be honest, they want to grow a body that's better than the ones you have today. So God knows who's being stored where until these things actually come to fruition when our technology reaches that point. But ET's been there and been there for a long time. They've been uploading their consciousness into bodies for millennia. The Greys especially have seemed to have. The Greys have got such a large population. I don't even know how much of them even breed anymore, because they don't die basically unless they're at war or something where a bunch of them get wiped out. They're just expanding throughout the cosmos, and the reptilians and the humans have that, maybe not to the same advancement as the Greys, but they have that basic same technology. They can upload their body, their mind to a new body. And it's stuff we've been working on because, they talked about clone cities in America where we would just grow clones. You could go in and pay somebody to grow your clone. And if you needed an arm, a leg, a liver, kidney, a heart, or whatever, they could just go take it from your clone and boom, it would match. It would never be rejected. But then that just sounded sick and eerie, and we would have warehouses full of parts of bodies. And no, man, that just something morally just did not sound right about that. But being able to grow a host body, and it don't even have to be you. It don't even have to be a clone of you. In other words, you get a new body. You might decide you want to change your hair color, your skin color, your eye color. Bam, and you just upload it into it, and away you go.
So, have you read Chet Snow's book, Mass Dreams of the Future?
Actually, I never read it. I listened to part of it via Rob Simpson did an audio. Well, I don't even know if he completed the audio book, but I listened to. Oh God, it was a while because I was driving to Utah at the time, so I probably listened to about 3 hours of it, maybe 4. I was riding with one of my fellow iCards. We were going to a UFO conference in Utah, a UFO festival. By the way, guys and girls, check it out. It's up there in June. Nathan puts it on. It's a lot of fun if you're up there. And if you don't live out in the East like we do, it's a hell of a drive. But go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. I know we're getting short on time.
Well, the only reason I brought it up is because, you know how it was made. He and his partner took hundreds, or if not thousands, of people forward into the future, and they all kind of agreed that there will be a lot less humans on the Earth in the future, a lot less than there are now.
Oh yeah.
So that hints. He never says in the book how we get wiped out down to like 1% or whatever it ends up being, but we agree, having been progressed into the future, that does occur. So I was just giving that out as a piece of information that kind of underlines what we've already stated about the future. So.
Yeah, well, I know people write to me all the time when they start hearing us talk about, what may be coming or not coming in the future. But guys, you just got to remember, if you're part of the program, you don't have anything to worry about. And if you're not part of the program, it doesn't look like it's going to take long for you to. So either way it goes, I don't think it's going to be a long, drawn-out process. But, why wipe out a perfectly good planet if you don't have to? Why destroy all the buildings or whatever they're going to do? They're going to probably, I would bet you money once the majority of the population's gone and the other population has been moved to wherever it's going to go, while the planet's being redone, I bet you they're going to use the resources of the cities and convert them into something else. I think they really would like to convert about 70% of what's here being taken up by cities back into landmass. Maybe into more constructive stuff for our cities, because like when you talk about the gray cities, most of them don't even touch the ground. They're floating cities.
Okay. So let me stop you there.
Yeah.
My abductee client said that the Greys that were taking her lived. There was a green star, and they, on the planet they lived on, the city they lived in was not on the planet. It was hovering above the trees, above the planet.
It was. It's like a dual thing. It's like part of the city is actually in space, part of the city is actually in the atmosphere. It's and you know what? You only hear that from Grey contactees. You don't hear that from anybody else. No other researchers even hear about it. If you're not working with a Grey contactee, you're not going to hear about it. It's not something you're going to find out about. The reptilians, on the other hand, their cities look like mud hubs built into the side of mountains and stuff. But till you get in them, and then they're all like high-end, high-tech, everything. And they like to do dome stuff underwater and above the ground, where they build these big clear domes so you can see outside with their libraries. They usually have these little round orb things in them that you can touch and think, and whatever you think about appears in front of you. Actually, it can be straight into your head if you'd like it, but since humans' brains are so small, it's probably not a good idea. Now, in upgraded bodies, people, I bet you they give you a brain with a much larger capacity than what we have now. So you could probably upload stuff like that. You're going to be telepathic, empathic. You might even be, you might even possess telekinesis. It might be something, because we know the Greys have it, the reptilians and humans have it. So it would make sense. It would be something they would pass along to us, or at least to the people who are going to stay. You got to understand, for them, they don't look at the whole planet as worth saving. I mean, the race is worth saving. They look at there's individuals on the planet, for whatever reason they think so. Maybe it's just because they've been evolving those family lines for so long, that these are the people they know can adapt to what's going to happen. Because, you're going to be taking places and you're going to see things, and you've got to have a personality and a mindset that can bounce back and be resilient from that. You also got to understand you're not on your world anymore, you're somewhere else, and eventually you might go back to see your world. Maybe not, maybe your kids might. But you're going to live a much longer life, and you're going to learn a whole hell of a lot more. You're going to see things that you never, ever, ever thought you were going to see. So it's got to be the kind of people that can deal with that, and most humans just can't deal with that. Most humans right now, I mean, if tomorrow morning the madman Trump got on TV and said, look, people, this planet has been being visited not just for a little while, but for 10,000 years or more. They have a long-term project for us. They're all over our damn planet. What do you think is going to happen? Half the planet's going to flip, and then the other half of the religious people are going to flip. Go ahead.
So have you read Ivan T. Sanderson's book, Hidden Residence?
I don't think so. The name sounds familiar, but I don't think I've read it though.
Okay, do you know who he is?
Thanks to John Goodwin.
What's that?
I said thanks to John Goodwin. Yeah, one night he educated me on some show we were doing about something entirely different.
Okay, well, Ivan T. Sanderson was a botanist. I think he was a plant guy, and he was a spy hunter in the Caribbean for the organization that predates the MI6. And Hidden Residence is basically, after he retired from the organization that turned into the MI6, he traveled the world looking for aliens that had gone in and out of bodies of water. And he basically made the statement that there were as many sightings out in the ocean and over lakes and over rivers as there are anywhere else. And basically he just was making the statement that they're living inside basically this planet all over the place. And who knows, there could be more of them than there are of us.
There's a lot of them, I'm not going to lie. People think there's just a handful, but when you realize how many people are being taken, you realize it's way more than a handful of them. When we actually worked out the numbers, or when Alfred Weber went on a live television show, decided to work out the numbers on me one night, we realized that, no, it's going to be a much bigger group than we originally thought. Because if current is, depending on what research you ask, between 10 and 15% of the current population gets abducted. Now, some of them may have stopped, more than half of them may have stopped being abducted, but at one time they were. That's 1.5 billion people. That's a lot of people. That's, now granted, they're not all being taken at one time or on one night, but over the course of their lives, they're being taken. And in order to get through that many people, you've really got to have a decent sized group out there. You've got to have facilities, not just one. You've got to have more than one. You've got to have places to take them, places to train them. whatever else you're doing with them. This is a much bigger operation than people realize, and it's been going on much longer than people realize. Because the main reason they don't realize how long it's been going on is because somewhere along the line our history's been cheated. This little 6,000-year history just doesn't work. At the very least, our history is at least 12,500 years, because that was when the last ice age ended, and that's when the positive cosmic pulse ended. So that's probably, and what's more important than that is every monument on this planet of any consequence points back to that date. This is an interesting thing we found out by sheer accident about 2 decades ago. We were looking at the Great Pyramids, and everybody knows the Great Pyramids line up with Orion, right? Everybody knows that. In case you didn't know, the statues on Easter Island, the 7 of them line up with the 7 sisters perfectly. Oh yeah, Draco, you know the Draco star system? Angkor Wat lines up with Draco perfectly. The Stonehenge, I forgot what system it is, but there's 5 of them, 6, 7 of them that line up perfectly with their constellations. Leo is one of them, which was the Sphinx, aligns up perfectly with Leo 12,500 years ago. All these monuments, the 5 I just mentioned plus the 2 I can't remember for some reason, all line up with their constellation at 12,500 years ago. More importantly, these monuments were built anywhere from 6 to 10,000 years later, but somehow or another, the people who built them knew how to line them up with their constellation that happened 12,000 years ago. These are significant. They're trying to tell us something. There was a significant event that happened on this planet 12,500 years ago, and we forgot what it is. But you've got major civilizations, the Chinese, the English, the Egyptians, all building monuments to point back to this. You've got the Angkor Wat civilization, which was another major civilization. They're building monuments long after this date has ended to this date. And it can't be a coincidence that 7 major societies on our planet built these monuments. There's something going on, and they're trying to tell us something. In their genetic memory, something told them to do this. There's some memory out there that we've either buried, lost, forgotten. Maybe it was the first day of contact. Who knows?
My wife was alive when that happened. That event, that 12,500 thing. I regressed her, and she was around when that happened. But I didn't get much information out of it.
Yeah, see, but that's what I'm saying. There's something went on at that date. Our race is much older than we're going to get credit for. Or I should say, we're much more we were much earlier civilized than we get credit for. You know, most people want to either do the Sumerians or the Egyptians 6,000 years ago. Either the Zero Dynasty from Egypt, which they recently found, or the Sumerians, whoever you want to argue with. That was the start of civilization, but I'm not buying that. There's things that suggest that our civilization started earlier than that. And they don't even like talking about India and China for some reason. India seems might be the oldest civilization on the planet. Well, they found them 2 cities off their coast that are 10,500 years old. So
the parts, you know, that's time travel, right?
Mm-hmm. The out of place parts, we talk about that a lot. And it's got to be, it's either a form of time travel or there was an advanced civilization on the planet at the time, or something crashed on the planet at the time. It's dependent on what part it is. See, that's why I'm funny about O parts, because depending on what we're talking about. If we're talking like a gear or a battery, something like that, which has been several found over the years in geodes and other things, in lava flows, that suggests some type of time travel, because that's a current type technology. So either there was a race like ours then, or somehow or another, maybe through the Bermuda Triangle or maybe one of the other opening portals on our planet, it's being sent back. I can believe that. But then they find stuff that doesn't seem to fit our time. They recently found, it looks like a transistor, but if it is, it's something way more advanced than anything we've got. 100 years, 5,000 years more advanced than what we're at. So that would be nice.
Have you ever seen the future?
And glimpses. It's I don't like to say seeing the future.
Okay,
I've been gifted with something. Go ahead.
I was going to the park in Memorial Park. It's not too far from Houston on the west side. And when I was entering the park, I looked over and there was this crowd there, and I recognized one of the people that I'd taken some photos of previously. And I wanted to show this girl these photos I had of her that I'd taken previously. And I was going to show them to her, but I needed to use the restroom. I was driving my father's black Lincoln Continental Mark IV, and And so I took off to go, there's no potties or anything anywhere near that part of the park, or anywhere in that park for that matter. And so I went and looking for a place to use the restroom in the woods. And so I found a spot. I turned down this little road that was just like nothing on the side of it except trees. And it was tiny. And I just drove my father's car into this woods. I jumped out. I used the restroom. I was in a hurry. I jumped back in and I started backing up really quick. And I had this vision of, it was like I was sitting in the back seat looking at myself from the back seat. And in the vision was like not in my head, it was literally outside my body. And it was in front of me, taking up the space where my steering wheel, like to the right of that whole space in there was the vision. It was, it was three-dimensional in the sense that I could see things like they were three-dimensional, but it was like it was projected on a flat screen. And so I couldn't see through it. And so, and like I said, it was like I was sitting in the back seat, watching myself driving. And in the vision, I turned and hit a tree. And so, and then the vision disappears. And I was like, oh man, I better watch out. I better slow down and not, and be careful when I turn so I won't hit a tree. So I keep backing up and I get past all the trees and I turn, look around. There's no trees. So I turn. Guess what? I hit the tree.
Just hit the damn tree. That doesn't surprise me, but that's still weird. That's all kind of crazy. I know we got to get out of here in a second, but anything you want to plug or tell them before we go? Or
ProfoundStates.com.
Y'all heard that? Say it again.
ProfoundStates.com.
It'll be linked up until probably Monday or Tuesday on the site, so y'all can go over there and click on it.
Okay.
And go ahead.
In the top right-hand corner of the site is a link, and the link is titled, it's an excerpt, an index from my upcoming book, Instruments of Control: How Attaching Spirits Cause War, Terrorism, Crime, Racism, Murder, Insanity, Mental Illness, Molestation, Marital Discord, Suicide, and many other illnesses, and are leading humanity to its fourth impending fall. That's the title of my book, and there's an excerpt, which I've already told today, and the index of the book is there. So you can read the index, and I'm looking for an agent. I was looking for a literary agent, but I think a regular agent would be better because you never know, I might get a story made into a movie before it's made into a book. Who knows?
Sometimes that happens. So don't laugh. I've seen that happen in the past. One more time with the title of the book.
It's called Instruments of Control: How Attaching Spirits Cause War, Terrorism, Crime, Racism, Murder, Insanity, Mental Illness, Molestation, Marital Discord, Suicide, and many other illnesses, and are leading humanity to its fourth impending fall.
Watch in the chat room. Slow down. No. Give them the website. Y'all don't need to know. He'll give you the website. Give them the website.
ProfoundStates.com.
Oh, guys, y'all got that? ProfoundStates.com. Come on. That's an easy one. It's not hard to find. Go over there and check it out. Let us know what you think. Get involved. Take a look. Okay, Cable One, what are you doing? See what's going on. People, check it out. I mean, don't be lazy. I know all of us got that instant gratification now that we're in the millennial generation again, but come on, people. Enjoy a book. Read, and if you can't, look, I'm going to tell you all a secret. I stay busy a lot, so I don't have a lot of time to read. So a lot of times what I do is I just tell people, if they got an audiobook, to send me that, or I have several apps that will read to me. Some of them are better than others, by the way. So get a voice that doesn't irritate you to listen to. Start off with. And then go. Because, in the busy time now, and I do a lot of driving on the road. I drive an hour and 20 minutes of work and back every day. So that's 2 hours and a half time. You believe you can go through many books in a regular week. So it's nice to be able to do. Just find someone you like listening to. and you can translate all your books if you want. Or these days, a lot of them. And I got to say, I even tell a lot of the writers that come on the show this, and a lot of the publishers that come on the show this, you need to make more audio books because this is the audio generation, people. We don't have the time to read like the baby boomers did, or even the X-Geners. The millennials and the Z-Geners are always on the go. If they're all reading something, it's text on their phones. But they'll listen to anything. They'll be texting and listening at the same time, music, whatever it may be, watching videos. It's just easier for them. They have to be moving and they have to be multitasking. So we tell everybody to make it in audio form so they can hear it. It's not many authors that can actually do their own audio books. Most authors don't have the voice for it. I like a good, solid voice. Something not too monotone though, because I don't want to fall asleep when I'm driving. If you know what I mean. But anyway, guys, ProfoundState.com. Y'all get over there and check it out. Let me know what you think. Write to us and see what's up. Email? Yeah, I seen that, Claire. I just seen you were asking for the email. Mike, email?
My email?
Yeah, they don't want my email. They can find mine anyway. They want your email.
My email is firstname.lastname@comcast.net.
And them evil Comcast people. Them people are evil. I know all about Comcast. They're evil. But anyway, guys and girls, we got to get out of here, man. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. I had a great time. Guys and girls, be sure to go check out the website. Check out the archive. It'll be up in about 10 or 15 minutes, so y'all can check it out. It'll be up there. They are for free. If you want to watch the video, just go to YouTube and click on the video. For anybody who's, by the way, and I forgot to say this at the beginning of the show, but anybody who's listening to us via the radio, FM, AM, or any of our internet venues or affiliates, you can go to YouTube and watch us. I know people, it kills me, but these people always ask, do YouTube, but still the majority of people listen to us on radio. So anyway, I do appreciate all the comments.
You are my number one, you are my star, you are what I find you are. The number one reason why I'm still here. Love you so much, dear, love you so much. I'm so sincere with delight that we will be divine in all the night we will have fun. Passion's desires upon the most magnificent of all branded fires. Loving life to the ultimate test and passing them all consequential fitness. Loving each other, blessed event when we are together. No one can control what we will sustain. The life of all little people. And know that we are one to ourselves. That we will become the best of ourselves within each other's embrace. And being happy with no mistakes. Being number one at no time will be here alone dead. Without happy and sincere with your love. So precious with you and me here. Longing for belonging so needy. I was at once so sad and depressed and so.
Instant Castle.